Hello, and welcome to Talking Shop, a conversation with educational leaders. My name is Mike Randolph, and I'm the proud principal of the Leesburg High School, and we are joined by our co-host, Martin Aftuck, the proud principal of Middleburg High School. Martin, how are you doing today? How's your week
Mike,
going so far?
Mike, man, I'm doing great. We're excited to have Coach Prewitt on here. She's one of my mentors as I came into Middleburg High School and got a chance to work with her for a few years. Was blessed to see just how she teaches. It isn't just she duplicates herself. It isn't just mentoring. It's creating where you teach kids how to learn, and then you'll see twofold just how it grows. So excited to have you on today, Coach Prewitt.
True leadership is multiplying yourself and not just adding followers, right? And Coach Pruitt is a multiplier. I've had the opportunity when I was young, just getting into the game in 2008, having the opportunity to just watch Coach Pruitt as a young, very dumb, immature coach. And just to watch the poise that Coach Pruitt had, just to watch the teaching that Coach Pruitt had, and really learned, and she taught me that coaching is teaching. So I'm excited
100%.
to talk to Coach just about those stories. So again, without further ado, we have Coach Carrie Prewitt, Middleburg's former volleyball coach. And can I tell you, so much more than a volleyball coach? She is a leader and a mentor as well. So, Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm still trying to figure out what my new normal is, but yeah, I'm doing no complaints, living the life.
Well, talk about your new normal. Let's talk about the last year. Where the heck you been? What have you been
Well,
doing?
the first part of the year I was down helping my mom, but after that I have been on the Appalachian Trail for the last 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
How
So
many
I took
miles is
the
that?
Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine. So,
Wow. Talk about that experience.
well, I dreamt about it for a long time, but I knew that I couldn't do uh, my normal life and do that at the same time. So I had to wait until I retired. So I've been planning this and I've been working at it and figuring out my gear and all that stuff. So I set a date. It's just like with anything. If you're you have to vocalize it, you have to set a date, and then it becomes real. And so I did that, and I set out in March, on March 22nd at Springer Mountain in Georgia, and it took me 171 days, 2,197.4 miles to get to Mount Katahdin. And through all that, just had some enormous experiences and met some amazing people. So,
So much just right there to really dive into. So
yeah.
let me ask, what was the hardest part of those 171 days?
Well, physically, the hardest part was New Hampshire. I went through a section where I just really struggled, and um, at, I had a little bit of doubt in myself, and I had to, kind of like push the restart button. But that was really my only struggle, like mentally, emotionally. Like I got up every day and was like, this is something that I get to do. It's not something that I have to do. And I was just excited to be out there. And so many, the people on the trail are so amazing, the people in the communities. And I just took it all in. I just wanted to take every bit of it that I could and just absorb it and just love it. Yeah.
So how many people are you walking by while you're doing? Like, is it a
It varied. So usually there's right around 3,000 people that attempt this hike every year, and 25% of them succeed. So when I first started the trail, I registered at 1,486. That was my start number. When I got to Harper's Ferry, that's kind of the midway point. I was 724. And then
Mhm.
when I finished, I was 614. So that means that I either passed people or people got off for whatever reason. And due to injury, or they just weren't interested anymore, whatever their why was. But yeah,
So you talked about doubt, and we talked about having doubt as leaders a
yeah.
few episodes ago. How did you overcome that doubt when it crept in?
Well, so my biggest fear was, well, it wasn't that there were times when I was afraid of going down some of the descents because they were just honestly just dangerous. And so, there was the section coming north of Mount Washington and then Mount Madison. And I just had to go really slow. But I was hiking with two other women, and they were faster than me at that point, and that I felt like they had to keep on waiting on me. And so I was putting these things in my head like they were that much faster than me. But then I would get to them and say, "I'm so sorry, you guys have to wait." And they're like, "We've only been here for a couple of minutes." So just like realizing that sometimes we make things out to be bigger than they are, and just being
100%.
realistic, And so once I got through that section, I was just like, I'm going to take it one step at a time. That's my YouTube channel name, is One Step at a Time. And I was just like, I'm going to do it one step at a time. And if I have to go slow, I'm still going to get there. I'm still going to get to Katahdin. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm not going to fall short of that. And so just kind of regrouped and got back out there and just pushed the restart button. And
So
I think
we
the
started
attitude
with where you're at now.
is important. What?
We started with where you're at now. Let's kind of go back
Yeah.
in time.
Okay.
Talk about your, you had the gym is named Carrie Prewitt Gym here for a reason.
Yeah.
The legacy you left at this school is incredible. I was blessed to be a part of it just for a small time, but talk about like the start of your career and then, how you got to where you got.
Okay. So I taught for 2 years in Illinois, and then decided that I wanted to go someplace else. So I picked Florida, interviewed all over the state. Woody Strickland interviewed me on a portable phone as he's out in his yard. I'm sitting at a little champ on a payphone. Had no idea where I was at, and he took a chance on me, but I wasn't hired as a coach. I was just hired as a PE teacher. And
Really?
Marilyn Lee was the coach before that, and she didn't want to give the program over to anybody because she'd started it. She wanted to make sure that they were qualified. So I accepted the PE position without having the coaching position. And when she found out what my credentials were, then she went ahead and relinquished the position to me. So we started off with 8 players and 1 court, and we just built it from there. And I think I always tell people, one of my former players, Courtney Veazey, she wrote a poem one time, and it was called "Walking on Our Bones," and it talked about like you're sweating where we sweat, you're putting skin on the floor where we put our skin, And so I think when you start creating a culture, it really starts being developed by the players, because the players build on what the players before them had set, and that foundation is so crucial to what comes tomorrow, and so I think that it's important, that the coaches, are consistent with that, and longevity is huge, I think, in order to build that kind of culture. But I really feel like the players that were there before them are a huge part of building that culture and having the players respect that and want to make sure that they're building on that and making it better every year.
So you talk about the importance of building a culture. What are some steps that you would give other leaders and coaches for creating that positive culture?
Because it didn't just happen with the players.
Yeah, it didn't just happen.
Well, and I things built, as the years progressed. When I first started, I was 24 years old when I started, right around there when I started at Middlebury again. So I would read books and go to clinics, and there's no reason to reinvent the wheel when there's people out there succeeding in something. So if you find something, you can put your own twist to it, but there's no reason to have to try and figure things out all by yourself. So, going and asking people questions and finding things that you think are hooks for your program, and then implementing them into your program. And then if they work, they work. And if not, then you go and you find something else. And so I thought that team building was crucial, getting the players to buy in to what you're asking them to do, I think is really important. And I think getting them to understand that, we did a lot of things that put them outside their comfort zone. And so then they had to rely on each other. They had to find a strength that they didn't know that they had. And when you go outside your comfort zone, even if you're not 100% successful, you are going to get more confident. You are going to start believing in what you're doing. And so that was always something that I felt was really, really important every year, is to find ways to get them outside their comfort zone. And a lot of times it was physical. Our conditioning was tough. Our preseason when we were allowed to have 2-a-days back in the day. Those were tough. And, those things created this unity within the players, and this, like we did this, like we accomplished this. And I think those kind of things were important. Finding ways for them to communicate with us, I think is really, really important. And so we would put a folder together, and it was a lot of work. There's a lot of things that we did that took a lot of time off the court in order to be able to do the things we wanted to do on the court. And so our folders were a communication tool between us, but it also included team goals for them to goal set for every match, and for them to understand, what a goal was and what an objective was. And, and it was a communication tool between us. And sometimes kids have a really hard time telling you how they feel about something because they're intimidated, or they don't want you to get upset with them, or they feel like if you start communicating with your coach that they're going to cut you off and tell you you're wrong, or you don't know what. And so this gave them a way to do that. And then I could pull them in and we could communicate about that stuff. I told them, you can write whatever you want on those folders as long as you're respectful and you're communicating really what you want to say. And so we use that for decades. And we had other things in there too. We had, we used a thing called red light, yellow light, green light. And it was like a mental thing for them. Like if you're in the green light, you're in the zone. Everything's going well. If you're in the yellow light, it's caution, like be careful, you're getting distracted, you're getting frustrated, whatever. And then red zone was you're shut down, you're detached. Like, how do we keep you out of the red zone? And we talked about those things, and we put that kind of stuff, that kind of information in their folders. We put stuff about nutrition and about, time management and motivational things, and all that kind of stuff was like in that folder. And that went back and forth with us every game. So
when you want to talk about valuable feedback, though, I got to see it for a couple of years. It's like talk about, it's like grading papers and writing feedback and being able to talk to those kids through that. It was, it's ingenious that you did it.
Right.
It's excellent. Again, you're providing that constant feedback, that constant way to get better, and just open communication. Now, Coach, you were very nice about it, talking about taking players out of their comfort zone. Coach, you were a tough coach, right? How did you get players to buy into you when you took them out of their comfort zone?
I think I just really tried to get them to understand the value of it. And when we would do our bonding trips at the beginning of the year, where we would go to like ropes courses and things like that, and just getting them to understand, like when we expand ourselves like that, that's when we grow, and when they could see that. But in practices, you're right. I mean, I did push them and I expected a lot out of them. And when they started seeing results, they understood that. And I think a lot of that too is what I said earlier. You've got, you don't have a whole new class every year. So you've got juniors and seniors that have already done that, or have been in the gym and seen it. And so now they're setting they're setting the standard for the younger group to stay up with that. And when you rely on your players to help manage that by example, it's easier, and so when you have your upperclassmen, you've got to make sure that they're bought in, because if they're not bought in, then all that stuff doesn't work. So communicating what my expectations were, I think, were really, really important. Letting them know when they're not meeting those expectations and what we need to do to change that, I think was really important. And then I think they also saw my work ethic. I was the first one in the gym. I was the last one out of the gym, and I would even, I think that a good leader is a servant. And so I would sweep the floor before practice every day, so they could be doing other things, not goofing around stuff, but, like getting in the gym and getting their stuff. And, I'm going to take care of you, in different ways. And so I think that it's a collaborative thing. And they've got to, they got to see the value in what you're doing.
Well, again, they got to see your work as a leader, so then they got to see you exemplifying that servant leadership, so they got to move into that. Let's
Right.
kind of transition. What does being a leader mean to you, and how do you develop those traits in your student athletes?
Well, I think a leader, there's so many different facets you could go into that. I think that the first thing is you have to be in check with yourself. You have to make sure that you're uh, you know sharing the values that you think are important to be a good person. I think that's really, really important. You're going to be honest, you're going to treat people right. Um, but you don't need to exhibit behaviors that are not behaviors that you want them to have. You're not only developing players, you're helping them grow as people. And that I think is more important than the player aspect. So, how you treat them with respect, and all that I think is really, really important. And I think that giving them responsibilities and then acknowledging the fact that they're doing a good job with those are really, really important. And so the longer they're in the program, the more responsibilities they get. And catching them doing things right, I think is really, really important. Because whatever you talk to about is the things that so if you keep on paying attention, and I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but like if I keep on paying attention and recognizing what they're not doing right, you keep on bending your elbows, you keep on bending, they're going to keep on doing that. But
Mhm.
they do it right, and you're like, that's it. Did you feel that? Like, that was awesome. Keep doing that. Like, let's duplicate that. Let's duplicate that. And so I think that, that kind of stuff is important. And duplicating and being consistent as a leader, I think is really crucial. If you're going to say something, you need to follow through with it. I think good character, good integrity, I think is crucial. And we talk about having good character in our program all the time. And so if we're doing something, I'm asking them to do like so many reps of something, and I know that somebody's not doing so, we'll start it all over again, and we'll talk about the importance of having good character and how that affects the team's performance. Even though it might be a sit up that you squatted out on, it's going to show up on the court, and how important it is to make sure that you're doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because somebody's watching you.
So much goodness on there. Something that we talk about is when you focus on the good
Yeah,
gets better.
that's
And I
right.
love that you emphasize that piece of
Yeah,
really focusing on the good.
yeah.
Coach, how many years were you? 36?
38.
38, sorry.
Yeah,
So
that's okay.
38 years as head coach. What would you say, like, if I had to ask now, what was like your most favorite moment as a coach?
I don't have one. I know that sounds, I don't have one. I have lots of different moments. I have, for example, we were in the state finals, and my whole team got food poisoning, and some of them were in the hospital. I remember Stephanie Bradley telling them, "You need to take the IV out of my arm because I got to get to the gym." And they're like, "No," she's like, "You either take it out or I'm taking it out myself because I'm going." She was 18, and and we were out on the floor. They extended it a day, I think, or 2 days. My
Yeah.
kids were not in any shape to play, but they were out there and they were just being warriors, and that was a really sweet moment because like they had nothing to give, but they were giving more than they had. You know, uh, Brett Peoples, one time we were on a climbing wall, and she barely got onto the bottom third. She hung there for 45 minutes and wouldn't give up, even though all of her teammates said, "It's okay, you can get off." And she didn't want to get off because she didn't want to disappoint her team and let her team down. And she wanted her teammates to know that she was going to do whatever she could to do whatever she could do. And, like there's so many moments like those that, kids have just accelerated. Mallory Beebe, who is now, she was in our business. She's now over
Yeah.
at Plumbing Island. She climbed up on a ropes course and cried the whole time. Our whole team is at the base just bawling, but she wasn't going to not do it because she wanted to show her team that she was going to get outside her comfort zone and she was going to tackle that. And those are things that aren't even on the volleyball court, some of those,
Exactly.
but they transferred to the court. And, watching kids go and do an extra rep on something to support their teammate. There's so many. I don't have one favorite moment because the decades just, produce their own. It's awesome.
I've heard you say it before, and I've seen you post about it on social media. Memories are the best souvenir,
That's right. That's right.
and I think it
I have a lot of
just
them.
the way you were able to duplicate yourself and in these kids, and then obviously like looking at Meredith Forkham now, what she's been able to do. It's like a
Yeah.
you got to be super proud
I am
of
so
her
proud
and
of her.
taking
I,
her.
I knew she was the right girl for the job. Yeah.
Hey, you told me. I was like, well,
Yeah.
I'm listening to her.
Yeah. Yeah. She was the right one for the job. I started coaching her when she was like in 7th or 8th grade in our club program. So yeah, she's awesome.
She's done a great job,
Yeah,
and
she has.
definitely, it's got to be cool for you to see the influence that you had continue. And you
It's
talk about
fun.
legacy, like this that's the legacy.
Yeah,
That's the
it's
legacy.
pretty cool. I'm so proud of her. Yeah.
Yeah, me
Now,
too.
how
Me
did
too.
that now how are you feeling with that transition, right? This is your first year not fully coaching. How are
This
you
is my
feeling? I know you
second
kept
year.
yourself. Oh, second
Second.
year.
Yep.
Second year. Okay.
Yep.
So second
So
year not fully coaching. How are you feeling with it?
I'm good. I am enjoying sitting in the stands watching the team perform, and I try to get out there as much as I can. Last year, I wasn't able to get out there until playoffs started, and I went to I think I went to almost every one, if not all, the games, and I just enjoyed sitting up in the stands, rooting for the kids, watching Meredith do her thing, and just was so proud of them. Yeah.
I
Well,
got to
that's
spend
like
a
a
lot of
parent. Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
got to spend a lot of time with that team too, and they are just so much fun. They're polite. They're
Yeah. Good
it's
group.
hard not to be positive around those kids.
Yes. You're
And
right.
she's lying. She does the announcing now too, so she's not just sitting up in the stands.
Sometimes they give me the mic, and then they're in trouble.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to see. You got to be proud as a
Oh,
as a coach and
unbelievable.
see what the legacy is you've left.
Yeah.
So
Um,
speaking of legacy, when they named the court after you, what did you want to be named for, or what did you want to be remembered for?
Oh, that's a good one. First of all, it was extremely humbling for that to happen because, that it just, you don't, when you come in at 24 and you just want to work your butt off and help these kids as much as you can. And that's what I wanted to do the whole time I was there is just, do the best that I could for those players. I think just that I cared. I wanted to inspire, and and then I cared about them as people, and I could do that through the sport of volleyball. Yeah.
That's amazing. So talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, One Step at a Time.
Yes. So I was trying to figure out what my title would be because I wanted to blog my Appalachian Trail through hike on a daily basis, and really enjoyed that. And I just couldn't figure out what to name it. And I was on a hike at the Art Loeb Trail up in North Carolina, South Carolina, and I was going up a pretty steep incline, and I was like, just one step at a time, Carrie, just one step at a time. And I was like, that's what I'm going to name it, because it's just like everything else. If you try to do it in big chunks, it's overwhelming. But if we take it one step at a time, and there were so many times when I was on the Appalachian Trail and I would look up and I would see the ascent that I would have to climb. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But if I started and I would just start, like within a minute, I'd already covered so much ground. And I thought, instead of standing at the base and looking at the top, just get started and just take it one step at a time. And eventually you're going to conquer whatever it is out there that you're trying to overcome or get to the top of, and I think that we do have to do the same thing with goals, like in our lives. So, didn't
100%.
that thing that how to you eat an elephant one bite at a time? That's the same kind of thing. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. So,
yeah.
question for our coaches. What's a few tips that you would give new coaches or established coaches for building a program and building a successful winning program?
I think consistency, I think, is really, really important. You got to show up every day. You got to be there physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there's no excuses. You're tired, whatever. There's just no excuses. You got to show up and be there. And, a lot of times we feed off of the players' energy, but they've got to feed off of us, and so we have to remember that, we've got to make sure that we're out there. And I think that, there's a thing, don't do tactically what you can't do technically. I think sometimes coaches overdo. They try to do too much. And really the basics are the answer. Stick with the basics, make sure you got the fundamentals down before you go on to the next step. And when I first got to Middleburg, the skill level was not very good. And they didn't do a lot of things at a high, like with a higher level. And they would want to just bump the ball over the net because everybody else was doing that and winning. And I was like, we're not doing that. We might not win these games, but we're going to end up winning in the long run. So, I would use the phrase like, we may not win we're going to win the battles within the battle. We're going to get better at this and better at this, and eventually those are going to take care of themselves. And I would tell my players as our teams got better, you focus on your performance, and the wins and losses will take care of themselves. And so we're going to beat some teams that maybe we shouldn't have beaten, and we're going to beat the teams that we're supposed to beat if we take care of that. And so I think those things are important.
Teams. So I know I left. How many wins did you end up with at the end?
Over 600.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, again, Coach, that is absolutely special. Again, as someone who has been blessed to have watched you as another coach serving at Middleburg, just seeing your leadership, seeing your passion, and seeing the way that you taught the game and really communicated with your student athletes, that's something that I aspire to do, because I know I did a terrible job of that. I just really grinded them and didn't do a good job of building them back up. But that's a reason why you had so much buy-in from your team. So again, Coach, it was an absolute pleasure watching you, learning from you, and growing from you. And again, today was an absolute treat. So thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your retirement for coming on today.
Okay, I got one last question.
Yes.
I want to know, tell me about kids 30 years ago compared to kids now. Like, what's the biggest?
Yes.
Is it different? Because we always hear about like these kids these days, but
right.
I just want your perspective.
So I don't think yes, there's a difference, but there's also a lot of similarities. When the kids that I had 30 years ago were working just as hard as the kids are now. The kids now have a higher skill level because they play more, but they're committed. They show up every day. Like we never had issues with our kids coming to practice. We had a pretty strict rule with that. You could have one unexcused, and on the second one, you turned your uniform in. And
wow.
and there were, and so I had kids say, "Coach, I got to go to work today," and I'm like, "You might want to try to find somebody else to take your place, because otherwise you're gonna have to turn the And she would find somebody else to but they were there. They show up every day, and they did the same thing back then too, And so I think that if you're gonna hold them accountable, you got to hold them accountable, and it's got to be consistent. And whether it's your star player or whether it's a player that's just getting involved in the game, they got to know that they're, that they matter. They have to be at practice. I need you at practice. You're important to our program. And so I think that, that is, I think they're the same in a lot of ways. I had really good kids back then, and I had really good kids all the way through my program. And so I feel like our program was extremely blessed. And I think that, when you have those good kids in your program, more good kids keep coming around.
No, that's what I tell them. The kids are all right. The kids are going to be okay. We always find a way.
Yep, that's right.
So I can tell you, it starts with someone, and it definitely starts with you. And even just right there, just the quote, "I need you at practice. You are important to our program."
Right.
So empowering to this student athlete. Right? Not just, I need you to be able to practice. I need you because of this drill. I need you because of this. But talking about their importance to your program and to the overall vision of your program. So, again, thank you so much, Coach. This was absolutely amazing. Again, today was Talking Shop, a conversation with educational leaders. My name is Mike Randolph, and I'm the proud principal of the Leesburg High School, joined by Martin Aftuck, the proud principal of Middleburg High School. And we have a very special guest on, Miss Carrie Prewitt. Prewitt, the former volleyball coach at Middleburg High School. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Coach.
I
We appreciate you. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
This was
Go
outstanding.
Broncos.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, go Jackets.
Go Broncos.